great
There you
time
go.
to be at the beach too. Most of the tourists are gone, and it's still warm enough to, go walk around the beach. It's a good.
Okay, good morning, everybody. It is 9 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the wow, time's moving just too quickly.
COVID time.
COVID time, October 11th, 2021, meeting of the Charter School Advisory Board. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Read the ethics statements. Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the advisory board. Does any member of the advisory board know of any conflict of interest or appearance of conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. Hearing none, the mission statement: the Charter School Advisory Board works to ensure the existence of high-quality charter schools in North Carolina. We have a full agenda today as well as tomorrow. That was made available to us on e-board, and I think we have it in our packet as well. We do need to have official approval of today's agenda as well as the approval of last month's, September's meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve today's agenda, or today and tomorrow's agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve today's agenda and tomorrow's agenda, and to approve the September 2021 meeting minutes as will be amended.
I second.
Second? So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? So approved, minutes and the agendas. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Holbrook. What's she have?
We wanted to take this opportunity to introduce everybody to Anita Holbrook, who is not here right now. She's probably down in the office working very hard like she normally does, but we've been without an administrative assistant for quite some time, and then we had a temp, and then Dr. Stegall was kind enough to let us share Anita, who is his executive administrator. So are you getting a lot of emails from Anita? Or the field gets a lot of emails from Anita. She handles your traveling reimbursements, and we just wanted to put a face to an email address and really give her a big shout out. She's just been a fantastic addition to our office. So when she does come up, I'll let everybody know who she is. But we just wanted to give her a shout out. So thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to meeting her in person. We do have some amendments to review this morning. So with that, Ashley, I think I'll hand it over to you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. So the first amendment, we have three today. The first amendment I'm going to introduce is Envision Science Academy's request. And I see they have a few representatives online, so they can answer any specific questions you may have that I don't already cover. Envision Science Academy is a charter school. It opened in 2014 in Wake Forest, and they serve K-8. The current enrollment is 736 students. They are a STEAM-based program, a lot of project-based learning, and a high-quality charter school, high-achieving. They are a model STEM school of distinction. They have a performance grade of an A with a growth of 96.1%. So they retain a lot of their students. They have very few students leave the school. Obviously, it's a school that's serving children well. and they are asking to implement a weighted lottery. Currently, they have a 5% economically disadvantaged subgroup, and their goal within the next 5 years is to double that percentage to 10%. By setting aside seats for 1% of the ADM each year for the weighted lottery. Much like Metrolina, who we heard from last year, because they rarely lose students and they have a very large wait list, it has proven hard to get much economic diversity in the school. So they're hoping that this will help. They are looking to support their students, the student kind of wraparound services, with things like after-school programs, summer programs, adding a math interventionist. They have a food distribution program called Backpack Buddies, and they are allocating money in the budget to ensure that children that cannot afford meals have meals at school every day. So at this time, if there are any specific questions that you would like to ask the school, they are on the line. I see Mr. Fuller, and I believe I saw Mr. Brian Cotterman on here as well, and they can answer any questions.
I'll ask a question. Is there anything that they have to do changing or regarding transportation? Or are they really feel they're already pretty well equipped to handle transportation if they go to a weighted lottery?
Mr. Fuller, if you want to unmute, you can, or if someone on your team, if someone wants to speak to transportation, that would be great.
Thank you. At this time, we do not provide transportation to our students. However, we are located in an area that transportation is not as big an issue, but we do have, I have spoken to one of our vendors about the possibility of providing transportation should that prove to be a barrier. And so I have worked on that and arranged for that to happen, should that be the case. And I discussed with her the possibility of providing like a central location where she could pick up students that fall into this program and bring them onto campus at a reasonable cost to the school, should that occur. The name of that company is Delicate Transportation.
So you feel where your school is already located that you have, you're already serving this population that would
We
potentially
feel like we
benefit
have
from
the
lottery?
ability to serve the population in terms of within a 1 mile radius of the school, we take in or have the potential to take in students that would meet the criteria of being economically disadvantaged. But if we have to spread a wider net than that, then that's what we would look at bringing in this transportation company.
Thank you.
Good morning, this is Lynn Kroger, and I had a question also, just regarding your marketing efforts. Can you speak to the type of marketing that you'll do in order to make sure that you reach out to various communities and letting them know that you're doing this weighted lottery?
Yes, we will be, of course, in some of the what's now traditional ways of, webpage, social media, that kind of thing. But we also plan to put signage up in around the area of Wake Forest that would help to attract and get the word out as far as putting in applications and critical junctures such as getting the word out to local churches and that kind of thing, if they are willing to help us out with some advertising.
Any other questions from board members?
Yeah.
I do,
This is-
Mr. Chair.
This is Monica Cutno, board member. May I add to what Dr. Fuller just said? We also have a good partnership with the Wake Forest Boys and Girls Club, and they've helped us out in the past, so we also want to market to them as well.
Okay, so we have a
Thank you.
question from Ms. Parley and then Mr. Sanchez.
Yes, I wanted to know if you would consider the the Wake Forest bus transportation system, if need be, to get kids to and from school.
We have not investigated that, but that's certainly something we would be open to.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I have a question and a follow-up to Zarek Sanchez. Can you help us understand the rationale behind the numbers with regard to your targets of 6, 7, 8, and then up to 10 by 2026-27?
What we wanted to do was to grow naturally in this area because we wanted it to be sustainable and not something that we would have to, perhaps apply for and obtain large amounts of grant money or something like that in order to be able to sustain it at the school. And then 5 years down the road, when perhaps grant funding dries out, be left with a situation that is unsustainable. We've always prided ourselves at Envision of being fiscally responsible, and that is important. So we wanted to grow naturally. We wanted to be able to sustain this growth through our internal budget as much as possible. But it's always been a part of our charter that we wanted to serve a diverse group of students. And so right now, 5% is where we are. And what we feel is sustainable is growing at a rate of 1% per year. 5 years, that doubles us, but as this group ages out through all 8 grades, you're talking about 9 years growing at a rate of 1% per year, hopefully, which combined with our existing 5% would put us somewhere in the 13 to 15% range, at least as what we would hope when this cycles through all K through 8 grades. And when you look at the surrounding area schools, some schools that would exceed some of the local public schools, some it would not even come close because there are some elementary schools in the area that are part of Wake County Public Schools that are 40% or better economically disadvantaged. But in order to sustain our current model of what we're trying to do, as well as serve a population of economically disadvantaged students and increase the diversity of our school, hopefully in other ways as well through this process, we feel like that's an attainable goal and one that we can grow into without having to have a tremendous amount of extra funding above and beyond what we are naturally receiving through our ADM, et cetera. And if Mr. Cotterman or Ms. Cutno wanted to address that further, that would be, I'd be open to that.
Bruce, I have a question.
Sure, we have another question from Ms. Turner.
What is your current student population, and why do you think that if you're thinking that you're going to be able to find these students within that 1 mile radius, why do you think you haven't attracted them so far?
It's an excellent question, and I think a lot of it has to do with the simple fact of what was in our application, which is that we did not start in the Wake Forest area, although that was always a part of our, that was always the intent of our charter. We had to start in the Raleigh area due to an inability to find a facility in the Wake Forest area. So we started out in the Raleigh area, and then once we were able to build our facility, we moved into the Wake Forest area. But by then, we were pretty much at capacity, and our wait list was and always has been very strong. And so it's difficult when you do not have a lot of open seats every year. It's difficult to change the makeup of your school. So that's why we feel like we need to target this population in order to make significant increases.
What's your current school size?
We have 736 students this school year.
So I am familiar with your campus and its location. And I guess I'm wondering, one, do you have Franklin County, a sizable, what percent of your students come from Franklin County? And two, do you plan to market to students in that area considering your proximity to that county?
Yes, we would market into Franklin County as well. Thank you for that question. Of our 736 students, roughly 115 currently reside in Franklin County. It is our second largest population group by far. Obviously Wake County is the largest. Franklin County is the second largest. And then we have a smattering of students from some other surrounding counties, Granville, Johnson, Durham, et cetera. But they make up, even when you add them together, they make up a very small percentage of our student body. We are fairly close to the Youngsville area. The Franklin County line is, I don't know, maybe a mile or so, but it's not a large population group, even when you get into the town of Youngsville. But yes, we would definitely market into that area as well.
Any other questions from board members? Okay, hearing none, we have a request for a revision to Envision, Science Academy to move to a weighted lottery. Would anyone like to make a motion on this request?
I move that we approve Envision Science Academy's request to adopt a weighted lottery admissions policy.
Any other parlay seconds?
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'd just like to note that I'm going to vote for it, but I do wish they were more ambitious. The school's got an amazing reputation. It's got a great campus. It looks to have its feet underneath it. It is right near the Franklin County. I keep doing that. Franklin County line, where I think there is a significant population that could utilize the school, and I would love to see them put more resources into both transportation and more into the weighted lottery. To go up 5% in so many years is modest. It's only 8 kids next year. It's rather modest. But I'm glad that they're doing it. I'm glad they're going down that going down that road, and like I said, I'll support it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, or to repeat the motion is to approve the request to have Envision Science Academy move to a weighted lottery. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? Passes unanimously.
All right, thank you so much, Envision, for joining us and answering those questions. I will be in touch with you, but for now, we will plan on bringing this request to State Board in November, and I'll keep you updated.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, we have another amendment request. So this one comes from Shining Rock Classical Academy. This is in Waynesville, North Carolina. Another school that has been in operation for quite some time. And this is just a mission clarification. A lot of our schools over time will decide to kind of I can't get to it because my WebEx is in the way. But I'll read it to you. So a lot of our schools over time will decide to clarify their mission. They go through some strategic planning, want to kind of clean up the language. And so Shining Rock is an example of that. So their previous mission statement included a reference to a Challenge Foundation Academy, CFA, which we know is no longer really working in that capacity. But they also specifically outlined their core values, so it's a little bit of a longer mission statement, and they've decided to include, they still have the same core values, but they're referencing it rather than, writing them all out. So the new mission statement would be Shining Rock Classical Academy encourages a sense of possibility in all students, equipping them with the foundational skills and mindset necessary to succeed in school, in our community, and anywhere their curiosity leads them. Our core values inspire thoughtful, confident, and resilient innovators of their future. Again, the core values are not changing, they're just not listing them all out in the mission statement. It's integrity, respect, compassion, responsibility, wisdom, and leadership. And I have not invited anyone here for this. I don't anticipate too many questions, but if you do have a question, I'd be happy to hopefully answer.
Okay. Pretty straightforward. I guess we
Yeah.
should just go straight for a motion and then go into discussion. So would anyone like to make a motion on this request to change the
I
mission?
move that we accept the mission statement that's Shining Rock is putting forward.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion for the Shining Rock Classical Academy's request for mission statement change, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? That passes unanimously.
All right, great. So we have one more, and again, there's no one here to speak to this. It's pretty straightforward. It's North Raleigh Charter Academy, and they have decided to relinquish their charter. They've set out the reasons in their letter, which has been posted to the e-board, but basically has to do with the inability to purchase property to house the school, the pricing of construction materials, supply chain delays, pretty much everything that I think most of us are aware of happening everywhere. And the board has made the decision to relinquish.
Very good. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we accept North Raleigh Charter Academy's request to relinquish their charter.
A second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No. All right, thank you, Ashley.
All right, thank you. So next we are gonna go to North Carolina Cyber Academy. I will pull that up on my screen in just a second. It's Mr. Martez Hill, he's the superintendent. He's appearing virtually today, so I'll pull up his information. And Martez, if you wanna begin giving a little overview of how Cyber's doing this first quarter, that would be great.
Good morning, everyone. This is Mr. Martez Hill. On the call with me as well is Ms. Jill Hammergren, the president of the North Carolina Cyber Academy, and Mr. Bo Mullins. He's the chief operations officer. So this morning, what I would like to do is ask Mr. Mullins and myself to give you an overview of our student enrollment growth from 2020 to 2021. Also wanted to talk about our students' performance on the North Carolina on the NC check-ins, and talk about the performance of our kids on the end of year courses from last year, end of year course exam and end of grade exam, and talk about how we believe we met expectations on the NC check-ins, but we did not perform as well on the end of year exams as we had hoped, and we want to talk to you about some steps that we're taking this year to improve testing performance. So let me recognize Mr. Mullins to talk about our student enrollment and other operations issues. Mr. Mullins.
Thank you, Mr. Hill, board members. Last year, we ended our school with 2,317 students. And as of this morning, we have 3,024 students. So that's an increase of just over 700 students from this past June to this morning. And, we ended our elementary school program last year with just over 500 students. And as of this morning, we have almost 945 students in our elementary program. So we've increased our elementary program by 400 students. Our middle school last year, we ended with 725 students, and we're at about 835 this morning. So we've increased our middle school band by 100 students. And even with our graduation of over 200 students last year, we had just over 1,000 students in our high school program. This morning, we have almost 1,250. So we've increased our high school band by about 200 students. And just for some clarification, we started seeing a spike in interest about early to mid-July. And so we started getting those students placed in cyber. And as of this morning, we have over 420 students that parents have expressed an interest in them coming to cyber in the second semester. So right now we have over 400 students that we plan to start getting all their documentation in and over the next 3 weeks and start enrolling them, getting their courses set up for the second semester. So in addition to the 3,024 students, we have 424 other students that will be ready to start second semester. And part of our enrollment process, we ask parents why they're interested in North Carolina Cyber Academy. And 55% say they're just looking for a better educational fit for their kid. And 48% say they're looking for a better cyber option compared to their current school options. So I know a lot of the brick and mortars have some different options out there, but 48% said they're looking at a better cyber option. And then almost half of parents surveyed said that they wanted, more flexibility in the schedule for their students. And then over half of our new enrollments are coming from traditional brick and mortar schools, and 18% that come from the traditional brick and mortar are coming from a virtual, an online option as well. So over half our new students are coming to us from traditional North Carolina brick and mortar schools. So with the increased enrollment, we've added over 30 additional staff members since the 2021 school year ended. One of our emphasis has been to reduce class size, and so we're trying to get our class size under the 35 students to 1 teacher ratio. And we have added an additional psychologist for this school year. We've added a number of additional EC teachers, some additional guidance counselors, and social workers to support the MTSS and social emotional learning. And so our emphasis has been, again, to support students as they return to school this year with social emotional and also decrease teacher to student ratios. And so right now we're still looking at a few, like a high school math, a science position, and we're interviewing a few EC teachers, and those are positions just to help us to reduce class size. So we're almost fully staffed. Had we not been trying to reduce class sizes, we would have been fully staffed. So we're in the process of interviewing, and then also we're adding a family engagement position this year that we did not have last year. So that, and student support position, so that this person can help us with some family engagement activities once we get on the other side of COVID. And so that's our enrollment, board members and Mr. Hill. You'll see the increase of over 700 students since we ended the school year last year. And with that increase, we've increased our staff by about 30 additional staff members, and many of those additional 30 have been like resource teachers, resource positions to help with MTSS and social emotional learning. And that's what I have this morning, Mr. Hill.
So, board members, as I mentioned earlier, last year our school participated in the NC Check-ins program, which is developed by the Department of Public Instruction. And those exams are developed by the same group of folks who developed the end of year, end of grade, and end of course exams. We decided to take the NC Check-ins and reading and math as a way to help our teachers and kids to prepare for the end of year exams. And throughout last year, as the data will show, we actually outperformed the state in the state average in reading and math at each grade level. And so we were, quite excited in anticipating that we would do as well on our end of grade and end of course exams we were unfortunately disappointed in that we did not exceed expectations across the board, in terms of how we compared to the state average. But we did, I think we did really well with regards to English language arts at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade levels. So, as we move forward and think about how we can translate the students' performance on the NC check-ins to the end of course and end of grade exams, some of the things that we're doing are directly tied to what Mr. Mullins said. We're hiring additional teachers to reduce the class size, especially at the elementary level. What we hope to do is provide an opportunity for more engagement between the student and our teachers, and the teachers and the parents themselves. We have hired new teachers and are requiring that they do more live learning, also known as synchronous learning. We have replaced all of our Edgenuity teachers who were teaching core courses with NCCA teachers. Those of you who may be familiar with Edgenuity will understand that Edgenuity's system primarily focuses on asynchronous learning, but we want our students to have live learning lesson opportunities, especially at the core level. We're going to continue to work with Edgenuity to provide elective offerings. Candidly, we would not be able to provide the number of electives at the high school if we were not partnering with Edgenuity. But again, we want to reemphasize and focus on live learning opportunities with the NCCA teachers. We actually hired several middle school teachers who are now NCCA teachers, and in last year, many of those teachers were Edgenuity teachers. One thing I wanted to bring to the board's attention is the idea of trying to ensure that our children had the same mindset during their instruction, as they have when they're actually having to take the end of year exams. So our kids receive instruction, primarily at home, working with their parents. They're working with a learning coach who is their parent. At the end of the year, when they take the exams, they leave their homes and they actually travel many miles and go to a proctored environment, in a proctored structured environment. And what we're trying to do is figure out along the way, as our children take exams, how can we actually prepare the environment to be very similar to what the environment will be like when they actually take the end of year exam. So I've begun conversations with some people at the Department of Public Instruction to figure out if we can actually administer the NC check-ins in a synchronous manner. And one example is we administer a test called the NWEA MAP in a synchronous manner, whereby children are assigned to a Google Classroom, and they know that a teacher is in effect monitoring their taking of the test. And so it gives those kids a sense that they're being proctored and monitored. But when we give the NC check-in, we're unable to assign those kids to a Google Classroom. In effect, the child presses a link that is sent from the DPI, and they go into a space where the test is administered virtually. But we would love to be able to try to figure out how we can manage the NC check-in in a way where our teachers can also help to, quote unquote, oversee and monitor and proctor the exam and prepare our kids mentally for the type of environment that they'll witness when they take an actual exam. We send out information and we talk to the kids and we talk to the learning coaches about preparing for end of year exams, but we want to do more to try to approximate that environment. So those are just a few things that I wanted to highlight. And so we'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for NC Cyber Academy staff?
This is Lynn Kroger. I had a question on the single audit findings for fiscal year 2020. Have you submitted a response, and is that closed and addressed all those findings? Have they been resolved and closed at this point?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Sullivan, would you answer that question? Thank you.
Yes, sir. So, yes, ma'am. So the two findings, we have taken care of that. That's been submitted and approved. The plan, we had to do an audit plan and send to LGC, and again, that's been approved and that's and taken care of. So with Acadia as our financial partner last school year, those findings were for the previous school year. So yes, ma'am, those two findings have been taken care of with the help of Acadia.
Thank you.
Do board members have any other questions? All right, hearing none, thank you very much, NC Cyber, for your quarterly report. We really appreciate it, and please keep doing good work by these students.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're into the application cycle now.
Ms. Turner, before we, and Mr. Friend, before we move on, Ms. Holbrook is here. And Anita, I did give you glowing references earlier when you were downstairs working. But I wanted you to come up and say a few words. I wanted everybody to put a pretty face with an email address. And publicly, thank you for the great job you've been doing for helping us.
It's nice to meet all of you. I think I have probably communicated with all of you for various reasons through email at some point. So my name is Anita. I've been working with the Office of Charter Schools for some time, supporting them. And it's my pleasure to support you all as well. And so just let me know however I can assist you, and through email or call me. I'll be glad to help you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anita's also been participating in our renewal visits, so trying to expand the scope of her work a little bit. So thank you, Anita.
Good morning, CSAB. This is Melanie Rackley, Office of Charter Schools. Between today and tomorrow, we'll hear from a total of 6 applicant schools. We will today hear from our final first round accelerated applicant, followed by the 2 accelerated applicants that were invited back for a second round later today. And then tomorrow we will begin our standard timeline application. So those are for folks who are intending to open, if approved, in 2023. So we'll go over some of the rules and the guiding process, if you can advance for me. So some of the statutes, rules, and SBE policies to be aware of. Also some of, the North Carolina Administrative Code there. Any of these are hyperlinked in the presentation. The Office of Charter Schools can make anyone, available any of these references. So of note, just general statutes here that give the authorization to CSAB and the State Board to approve charter applications. General statutes that outline the duties regarding those charter applications. And again, the North Carolina Administrative Code, the application and review process is pretty detailed. And again, the Office of Charter Schools can make those references available at request. We also have CHTR 012, again, more outlining of the charter school application and review process. We also have a general statute reference that allows applicants to correct any of their applications, which part of what OCS has done is provided applicants the opportunity, if their applications were deemed incomplete, we gave them a minimum of 5 days to correct their applications and provide any deficiencies to us. So that's the general statute reference there. That statute also allows applicants the opportunity to address CSAB in their capacity interviews, and what we're doing today as these applicants come before you. We can move on to the next slide. We have CHTR 016, which is the fast track replication statute. And we also have CHTR 013, which actually authorizes and outlines the ready to open process and that planning year for preliminary charter schools. And so these accelerated applicants do know that they have to enter into the planning year regardless of an approval. So many of those with the assistance of Ms. Claire Porter have already entered into their planning year session. And so what we wanted to make available to you are the acceleration requirements. That first subset speaks to what must happen for an accelerated application to move forward. So they have to demonstrate a clear and compelling need for the accelerated timeline. They also have to demonstrate an exceptional need in that proposed location and agree to participate in the planning year. Also, they have to demonstrate that there is a facility identified that's feasible for opening on the accelerated schedule. The second subset of information outlines what you will also consider, the presence or absence thereof. So is there a unique mission and educational program? Do the charter applicants have partnerships that are committed to assisting the school, whether they're local, state, or national? Is there a potential for economic and educational impact to develop the region for which they propose? And whether or not the accelerated applicant, has mentoring by a successful organization. Their commitment to providing the charter school boards. Do they have a commitment by a mentor to provide successful charter school guidance? Also, the length by which the nonprofit corporation has existed, and the final part is the proposed board. Do they previously or currently operate a successful public charter school? So all of these are what you all have to consider when deciding on the recommendation for an accelerated applicant. So again, that first subset, you have to meet those requirements, and then you also have to consider the absence or presence of those following subdomains. So again, really want to pay attention to those accelerated requirements. On the left, we actually have the responsibilities of OCS, which is most of what has happened up until now. We've collected the applications and the corresponding fees. We've notified all of the applicants of their interview dates, their next steps. We've provided training to the applicants. We've provided training to the evaluators, and that's made available to you all through the summary feedback that you get ahead of each CSAB meeting. We also have released all of the evaluations to the public, to the board, and provided the evaluation rubrics. We've notified applicants during each stage of the process. On the right, which is what we have to determine today, that last bullet point, CSAB is charged with making one of three recommendations. You advance the application to the SBE for approval, you'll hold over for round 2, or you'll advance to the SBE for denial. If you deem any of the applicant, again, we're going to hear from our final accelerated applicant today. If you deem round 2, then we'll schedule a second round interview, and then the final choice would be advanced to SBE for approval or for denial. And so again, here's a geographical outlay of the applications that we received for the 2021 cycle. And so you'll see that they're pretty distributed across the state. Mecklenburg County, obviously, with the greater number of applications. But again, great geographical mix for our applications. So again, with our round 1 folks that we'll hear from today and then again tomorrow, we'll do the intro. We'll allow the applicant to provide their opening statement. You all will deliberate for the 25 minutes. The applicant will then be provided with a 10-minute close, and then you all will make your final determinations. The process is abbreviated for those second round applications that we'll hear from. So we've condensed that process down to 45 minutes. It may take less based upon the feedback and the question and answers that we, OCS, have provided to those second round applicants. So if we're able to condense that process, again, 45 minutes or less. So this is kind of what we've outlined. This is a process that we've already completed. The committee lead has gathered all of your second round questions. We've distributed those to the applicants. Applicant was given a timeline to provide those answers and responses back to us, and we've made those available. They're also posted on eBoard for your review. Again, we've already outlined that, and then we also have your committee assignments. So if there are any questions as to committee leads and where you are, we have the performance and policy distribution here. And so today we'll hear from Elaine Riddick Charter School. They'll be our final accelerated applicant. And then tomorrow we'll hear from standard applicant, the Phoenix Preparatory Academy, Agape Achievement Academy, and Impact Leadership Academy. And then coming back for round 2 today would be Revitalized Charter School and Oak Hill Charter. And then next month, looking ahead to November, we'll hear from Liberty Charter Academy, Centerpoint Classical, and Legacy Classical Academy. That's your look ahead.
Ms. Turner, I did visit the site of where Elaine Riddick wants to be, and it is my opinion that the building will be ready on time. And we also got a text from somebody from Elaine Riddick concerning who could not make it today, and I'm going to ask Ashley to read that text. Okay,
So you received the board member list, so just to make sure that it's correct, I believe Dr. Dodo and Dr. Conan will be coming virtually, I believe, and then Dr. Swenson, who I think also is like a consultant for the school, may be virtual as well. So just to update that list, so I believe Tony Riddick, is Tony in person? Okay. So Tony Riddick should still be in person, and then it looks like we have some representation from the EMO board site.
Can I clarify that then? So the list we have has 5 board members, not the EMO, 5 board members.
Yep.
We have 2 remote today and 1 in person, is that correct?
Correct. We should actually have probably 3 remote, Dr. Dodo, Dr. Conan, and is it Ms. Owens? Ms. Owens. Mr. Aples, Archie Aples will be absent. And yeah, so that's, I would have had it updated, but I don't, I just, received that, so just so you know.
Thank you.
So are we ready to proceed?
Yeah, I believe we are, and just as a reminder, CSAB members, this is an applicant that has been before us before, but we have to treat this application sort of on its own merits, not from prior years. This is a request for an accelerated application. So keep that in mind as we have our discussion today. So with that, the applicant has 10 minutes for an opening statement.
Yep. So I'll just do a brief intro for Elaine Riddick. So Elaine Riddick is in the easternmost part of the state in Clemens County, bordering the Albemarle Sound here. They are proposing in year 1 grades K through 5 with 150 students, year 2 grades K6 with 175 students, year 3 K7 with 200, year 4 K8 with 225, and year 5 K8 225. So at capacity in year 4 would be the K8 with 225 students. They do plan to provide food service to their student body through a private vendor, and they do intend to participate in the National School Lunch Program. They will provide transportation for their students. They will utilize the weighted lottery. They do have a facility located, which is in Hertford, North Carolina, as Dave alluded to. And then there was an LEA impact that was submitted from the Clemens County School Board that's on file, made available on eBoard. They are a repeat applicant, and they are using the assistance of an EMO. And their application, again, was deemed complete at the time of submission. And so here you'll have a map of Elaine Riddick and their proposed site in red, and the neighboring LEA schools that are there. And I believe that it is it Shawan, I believe Elizabeth City Schools that are like the next closest LEA in that vicinity. So I will turn this over to Elaine Riddick to begin their opening statement.
Good morning, CSAT members. Don McQueen, representing.
Excuse me, the
Yes.
opening statement should be given by the board.
Understood.
Are you on the board?
No, I'm not. I'm trying to prepare for the board. We're missing our board chair. We're trying to get him. We know he's in town. Can we start?
I have Kofi Kanan and, or at least, Kanan.
Kanan, yes. Kofi, and he's also one who should be with his wife. So we can allow them to start with their statement. Thank you.
Mr. Kanan, it looks like you're unmuted, so if you want to give the opening statement for the board, that would be great. Mr. Kanan, can you hear me? It looks like they're unmuted, so.
And we're waiting for the gentleman who was going to be in person. Is not here yet.
I believe so.
Can we take a break then?
Yeah, let's take
Yeah.
let's take 5 and see if
Okay.
they can identify where their folks are at.
Okay, for those of you that are listening over live stream, we are going to take a 5-minute break and then resume. Thank you.
Thank you.
They turn the microphones off.
Yeah. Can we, are the mics on?
Indeed.
We are, good. Mr. Riddick, right?
That's correct.
Okay, can you, will you just check and see if your other board members can hear you? They should be able to hear you through that, and if they're online and ready to go.
Can everyone hear me online?
This is Rima Owens. I can hear you.
Rima? Dr. Dodo?
Good morning. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
This is Dr. Dodo.
Is Dr. Conan with you?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
How about Dr. Swenson?
Okay, thank you. So let's go ahead and get started. And Dr. Riddick, as chair, you have 10 minutes for opening statements.
Someone's phone is here, by the way. I don't. It's fine, sir. Okay, good, no problem. Thank you and good morning. My name is Tony Riddick. I am the son of Elaine Riddick. Can everybody hear me okay?
Sure. Yes.
Okay, I'm the son of Elaine Riddick. First, let me open up by telling you why we decided to name the school the Elaine Riddick Charter School. Then I'll get into more specifics about me. We named the school Elaine Riddick Charter School because many of you know the story of my mother. In 1968, she was sterilized by the state of North Carolina. Against her will, she had no knowledge of it until approximately 5 years later. They sterilized her because they believed in their mind, they had convinced themselves that my mother was feeble-minded and she would produce an offspring of feeble-minded children. So the board of 8 white men got together and decided that they should take away her God-given right to produce children. So they sterilized her. 5 years later, my mother found out about it, and she went to visit a doctor, and the doctor explained it as she had been butchered. Before that, she had no knowledge of it, and since then, of course, my mother went on to graduate from college and work as a healthy adult. Of course, and I went on to graduate from college, running my own business, working for some of the Fortune 100 companies in Silicon Valley, of course, obtaining millionaire status at the age 32. And of course, I moved back home when I was 37 years old, roughly 2004, I believe. And immediately we noticed the disparities with the education in Paquimids County. So as a result of that, me being concerned, I decided that I would implement a summer camp where I would finance summer programs geared around math, science, reading, and history. Because the disparities were so great. If you look at the data now, it shows that about only 30% of African Americans in Paquimids County are graduating grade proficient. And this is really sad. The college preparedness gap is about 32.5%. And so these issues needed to be addressed. And I said, who better to address than someone who the state would have deemed feeble-minded. So hence the name Elaine Riddick Charter School. Also to serve as a reminder of what we don't want to do. And to serve as a reminder of the possibilities that all children have if they're simply allowed to apply themselves. And then thirdly, to serve as a reminder, just because a board of people come together and deem that you're not worthy of producing children, that is not necessarily the case. And we should do everything that we can to fight against it. So in 2002, 2003, because of my mother's ongoing efforts for 40 years fighting against this sterilization thing, North Carolina repealed the law. But up until 2002, it was still legal. 2003, it was still legal to sterilize, although there weren't any documented cases since 1974. However, on Native American reservations and reservations, it wasn't documented very well anyway, so the cases still could have been going on. With that being said, now let's go a little bit further about me. Tony Riddick, the son of Elaine Riddick, graduated from DeVry University in Atlanta, attended college also at San Jose State, working through Applied Materials, who was a leading manufacturer of semiconductor technology at that time. So I worked for them for about 10 years. Then in 1998, I went out on my own. Prior to Applied Materials, I worked in research and development for IBM in Westchester County, New York. left there going on to Applied Materials, and in 98, starting East Coast Semiconductor Solutions. Also in the area, I buy and own a lot of real estate in Paquemics County, and I used to own quite a bit in Durham up until recently. So that's my background. I was also responsible for training senior level engineers that work for Applied Materials from Florida to Maine. That was also part of my responsibility as well. With that being said, now I'd like to give Dr. Hortense Dodo the opportunity to introduce herself.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Tony. My name is Hortense Dodo. I am a member of the board of Riddick Charter School. And my background right now is that I am the president of Envision, a biotechnology company that is located in Northeast North Carolina. Our mission is to ensure that no more children die of peanut allergy. So in our company, we have developed a technology to remove allergen from peanuts, and we have been awarded 3 patents from the USPTO. And our company recently was awarded a grant for $1 million by the National Science Foundation to help solve this problem of peanut allergy and to assist with bringing the product to the market. Before Envision, I was a professor of food science and biotechnology at Alabama A&M University, where we established the first of its kind at any HBCU, the first research and teaching program in food biotechnology. We graduated many American and international students at the bachelor, master, and PhD level, and many of them have moved on to become leaders in their own fields, in agriculture, in food industry. One of our students is even the dean of the School of Agriculture, and we're very proud of their achievements. As a board member of Riddick Charter School, I would like to contribute as a resource person for STEM activities and to assist with exposing the student to the global world outside of Perkins County, North Carolina. And we want to improve the life of our students and get them prepared for college. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. That's my turn, I guess.
Yes.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Kofi Kunan. I'm the Chief Research Officer at Envision and also a faculty member at Fayetteville State University. I'm bringing on the table here my vocation in science and teaching, which I believe can be also a good source for STEM-related activities and program. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, Tony, Dr. Dodo, and Dr. Conan. My name is Rima Owens, and I am a multifaceted as a business owner, previously operating a large healthcare facility in North Carolina, having a real estate business among numerous others. I also hold a multi-state license as a practical nurse, and I am a certified behavioral health counselor with experience in dealing with mentally challenged adults and those with severe mental illness. I also hold a minister's license. I previously served on the board of the Institute of Divine Metaphysical Research as treasurer of the Charlotte branch for 6 years, and I've also served on the board of the North Carolina Long-Term Care Association, now known as the North Carolina Senior Living Association, for 4 years. I have an extensive background in state and federal government-related policies and procedures, as well as budgeting and financial forecasts. The way in which I feel I am of value to the Elaine Riddick Charter School Board is that my background in nursing and behavioral conduct issues can be an asset in advising the school if or when any student challenges arise around students' mental health and their ability to rise above those challenges in order to unleash their full potential. Thank you.
Good morning, Charter School Advisory Board members, as well as
DPI staff that are present. My name is Dr. Lisa Swinson. I am a consultant with the EMO Torchlight Academy. Previously, I assisted this board with the RTO process, and that will be my role in assisting the board with this process. I'm also going to provide support into the national, after the national search has been concluded for a school leader. So I will stand in that role and help the board and the EMO until they find the school leader for the school. My background is that I was a school administrator at Sally D. Howard School. I have also been a consultant in the Office of Charter Schools and have provided support to several other charter schools after I left there. And Dr. McQueen, Mr. McQueen.
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. Just want to, I think, talk a little bit about what Torchlight Academy Schools, the LLC, has committed to this process. We have invested over $500,000 in the acquisition of the facility itself. We put about $150,000 to $175,000 in materials that are on site, as Mr. Machado saw when he was there. We have about another $100,000 in labor to construct, to finish out, to build out of the property. And we've also invested about $30,000, $35,000 in advertising and promotion over these last years in order to attract parents and make folks aware that the school is taking place. So Torchlight Academy's been around for over 20 years, and so our commitment goes well beyond just the financial investment we make, but we have a generation of service as well as a mission that we feel is part of our life. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I think that we're past our 10-minute introduction, but if you have anyone in closing comments, feel free. Like closing for your opening. If you have any. Not closing altogether.
Okay. So thank you. So you've heard from our board. You've heard from myself. And, you know, this is not our first time. We were approved by the state in 2018. Very little has changed on our application, very little. We were shot down because the building wasn't ready. We had building issues with the certificate of occupancy, and we have many things that we can point to justify why that happened. But the fact of the matter is, we don't have issues with the building anymore. We have the building, we have the permit. Now we just need to go ahead and get working so that we can do the necessary repairs or upfitting to get the building ready. You just heard Mr. McQueen state that we have the supplies, the materials are all there. We're just waiting to go ahead and get started on the process. And the last thing that I'd like to say is that our communities as a whole are in dire need of something different. I think we have to approach education in a different way today in order to satisfy the needs of this great nation. If we don't start doing things differently, then the country will continue to deteriorate. And what we're saying at Elaine Riddick Charter School is that we know that we can impact that process in a positive way. We just need to be afforded the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the next phase is that we will have 25 minutes of deliberation amongst the members. We asked.
I can't hear that well, so can you please speak up? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm very sorry.
Well, the next 25 minutes is for CSAB to sort of deliberate on the application. We'll probably have questions for you and your fellow board members to respond to. So as we begin that process, what I'd like to do is just, fellow CSAB members, what are some of the questions that you have, maybe get those out on the table, or topics you want to ask the board members on, and then we'll go into the specific questions. I'll be glad to start, lead by example, I guess. I do have some questions on staffing that's in the application. I'm interested in learning more about how you envision blended learning, because that was in the educational plan. And a couple questions about the budget as well.
Okay. Well, I have more questions about the building, the facility, as far as ownership, and who will ultimately be the landlord, and when was the purchase made, if the building has been purchased. And I want to know about the Mechanics and Farmers Bank statement. I think we were looking for bank statements, financial statements, as opposed to a narrative. And how does Beam Academy fit into your relationship with the Mechanics and Farmers Bank? I noticed they were on the letter. Also, Dr. Dodo is serving in 2 roles as treasurer and secretary, and would like to know why she's serving 2 roles when there are 5 members on the board.
Excuse me. So obviously, I'm going to have to call on board members to respond to some of the questions that I'm hearing so far. Okay, great, super.
Yes,
Thank
for
you.
sure. Yeah, we're just trying to get out on the table some of the so you guys can start thinking about how I might answer that question. Ms. Turner?
One of the things that Mr. Riddick said several times was the need to do things differently, and so I'm particularly interested in what does that look like at Elaine Riddick? What makes Elaine Riddick different?
I had 3. What's the core professional development that's driving what's going to be different? I see that teachers are going to be creating pacing guides. Are they modeling after anyone, or are they doing that work all on their own? And then the last is I know they wrote a letter in rebuttal to the county's impact statement. I think it was Rick Clemens. Yeah. That last paragraph, or the next to last paragraph in the letter from the superintendent, talks about Torchlight's Academy's school letter grades, C's, D's, F's, things like that. I didn't see a response to that concern from the letter from Elaine Riddick. I'd like to know, if that school's that they're modeling after, what's going to be different.
Yeah, I agree. The EMO issue, I think, is important. There are some schools that have not had a record of success with affiliation with Torchlight, and perhaps a discussion about what Torchlight may do differently to ensure that Elaine Riddick is successful.
So let's start there, if we may, and then we'll move into maybe the education plan and some of the others. So, your credentials are amazing, as are those.
I'm sorry?
Your credentials are amazing, your personal credentials, your professional credentials, as it would appear the other board members are as well. In this effort, you've made the decision to partner with Torchlight. How will this school be different than other schools in the area or other Torchlight schools that may not have had the level of success that they perhaps would like to have seen?
I'd like to answer this question in 3 parts. I'll answer the first part, and then we'll have Dr. Swinson to answer the second part. And then I'd like for Don McQueen to contribute to the third part. My answer starts out with what makes Torchlight different, or the Elaine Riddick Charter School different. Well, there are several things, and from my perspective, it's our personal commitment to be great. It's our personal commitment, personal meaning the board and the staff members that we will bring on. Our personal commitment is very entrenched in Pacoima County and has been since 2004. Ms. Turner, let me direct this directly to you. What makes us different is that when I moved home in 2004, as I said in my opening statement, we looked at how the children were failing, that 30% proficiency graduation rate amongst African American men and women. We looked at the areas where they were failing based on the numbers that we did get from the Board of Education at that time. Superintendent Cheeseman was in Pacoima County. We were meeting with him regularly through the NAACP, which I'm the education chair for the NAACP. We're meeting with them regularly, evaluating the data. As a result of that, we use the lessons that we learned during the evaluation process based on what Superintendent Cheeseman was giving us to more specifically address the math and science shortages. This is what I mean with that. So we brought certified math teachers in our summer camp, teaching the children in our summer camp math early on, doing extended summer hour training programs as it relates to reading, and doing the same thing with science. So you say what makes us different as a board is that our ability to commit our personal resources into this educational system, realizing that the children in our community are being adversely affected. This is a very last point that I want to give to you, and then we'll allow Dr. Swenson to pick up. The last point I like to give, if you look at the overwhelming statistics in the United States of America today as a whole, African Americans make up 47% of the prison population. If you read Dr. Michelle Alexander's book, School to Prison Pipeline, 80% of all inmates that are currently in prison either dropped out of school or has what you call a GED. We know that as a board, we can impact that process by getting involved with the education of our children early on. So the lessons that we take from that as a board, all of our boards are very active throughout the community that are in Paquimish County or Pasquotank County, is that we commit to our children by running summer programs every year since 2004. And I don't know that you probably can account for any other board across the United States, really, that are doing such things. So with that being my answer, let me turn it over to Dr. Swenson to give her answer.
Thank you, Mr. Riddick. And so as far as the educational plan is concerned, what really sets the school out from the LEA is the major focus on Teach Like a Champion and also Think Literacy. Think Literacy very specifically has had success in several schools that have the population that's going to be similar that we project. It has strategies that the teachers can use, and most importantly, the students will be actively learning. The teachers will have professional development embedded in their lesson plans, and so that is one thing that will keep us, that will set us apart as far as that's concerned. Also, Teach Like a Champion, several of you may be familiar with that. That will certainly help with the culture of the classroom, the students and the teachers knowing the expectations. It also has components in it for feedback and just helping the classroom to be well managed. And so those educationally with the instructional model that, and also to add another piece to that, the data-driven instruction. We already have a very good model at our sister school, Torchlight Academy. Each week, there is a set time that teachers know that they're going to be looking at the data. And so that is something that is going to be happening at this school also. That's been very successful for Torchlight, so that's something that we also want to add to that.
The third part of the answer, Don McQueen. The third part of the answer.
So it was mentioned that Torchlight Academy had a couple of schools. Which schools are you referring to? I want to be specific. That was referred to.
It doesn't mention in the letter. It says, wait a minute. Torchlight Academy, the schools earned 4 C's, 1 D, and 1 F. 5 years ago, data for Three Rivers, also operated by Torchlight. The average performance was 34, 2 D's and 3 F's. Central Elementary School, maybe. Nearly doubling the performance of Three Rivers, earnings 4 C's and 2 B's. It doesn't really mention in any of the schools particularly. It just says that there are a number that are there's 3 or 4 that are D's and F's.
Yeah, so that's part of our concern. We did put a response into the LEA impact statements as such, and that should be posted. We got that in just recently. There's some confusion because they were just throwing out a bunch of schools or things of that nature. Torchlight Academy Schools LLC took over Northeast Raleigh Chartered Academy, doing business as Torchlight Academy in 2015. From that day forward, our school has received a letter grade of C or above. In 2016, we exceeded expectations, had the highest growth score of all charter schools in the state of North Carolina, to no fanfare, but that's exactly what happened. And we were in the 1% or top 10% of all charter schools growth in the entire state. So those are the actual facts. If they're referring to any other school, I'd like for them to be specific about that so we can respond specifically. With respect to the impact statement, we were a bit concerned because it seems that impact statements, according to what we've researched in the law, in session law 2013-55, repealed the provision of the Charter School Act, which required charter school application applicants to submit a copy of its charter school application to the local Board of Education. It further repealed the provision allowing local school boards to offer information or comment concerning the application it considers appropriate to the chartering entity, in other words, the State Board of Education. So we think that this entire process is a little out of place with them responding based on our reading and understanding of the law as it sits right now.
Okay, I have a couple questions / comments.
Yes.
Torchlight LLC took over the school in 2015. However, were you not already running that school?
Yes, we were running that school
Okay,
for
so the
20
LLC
years.
took it over, but it wasn't, but it was still you guys running the school, so it's not like some different set of people came in 2015.
Well, it's some different set of circumstances. There's the way we handle things, we found it to be much better, cooperation with the board, things we were able to accomplish, working with, partnering with private partnerships as a for-profit allowed us to do a variety of things, bring on some additional resources, borrow funds in a way that we haven't been able to use before, leverage real estate assets that I own. So those kinds of things made a difference in how we were able to achieve that. So yeah, we were the same, but a little different. Being a management company does have an impact. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the other thing was, I saw that, and I think this was in the response, the distinction between Torchlight LLC and the other organization, the one that took over Three Rivers.
Yes.
My understanding from a meeting that we had with you, I might have even been 2 years ago, is that other organization, you were left being the only person in that organization.
That's
Is that
correct. Yes, ma'am.
So yes, it's not that it wasn't Torchlight LLC, but you were still running Three Rivers. The implication to the response was Torchlight wasn't running Three Rivers, and Torchlight actually is running Three Rivers.
Well, we if we're going to be specific, because we have to be, that is run by Global Education Resources.
But it's still the same people.
Understand. Allow me to respond. That distinction was even brought up when that discussion was made, because I think the previous operator who was responsible, John, for all the letter grades that you saw, the C's, the D's, the F that of the school, because we run the school 1 year. Since that time, it's been pandemic kind of test results. So we only had 1 year of operation. So yes, that was the case, and it was distinctly set out that it is Global Education Management that's running that. So two things. Yes, that is true. We're kind of left to where we are with me running it. And two, the test results and the scores and the letter grades are not attributable to our management of the school.
Okay, the 1 year that you actually ran Three Rivers that we had scores, was it not also an F?
Yes.
Okay, what about Essie Mae Fox? You ran that for 1 year, and they also were an F.
Well, Essie Mae Fox was a different situation, ma'am. One of the things that makes us different, I think, in this situation is our cooperation and working much more closely with that board. As you recall, Mr. Fox, Kenneth Fox Muhammad, there was a challenge with him right out the very gate, his criminal record, and some other things that came to light that made that relationship untenable for us to stay in that relationship. So there are other things other than just the letter grade to C. And I don't think you can take a school in 1 year, maybe some people can, with the students in that body and have an impactful difference where you're going to make a great change. We may be able to do that. We think we can. We have some strategies in place, so we're going to do our best to actually do that. But usually schools are allowed a couple years to kind of turn things around.
So let's, if we may, move on to some of the other questions specific for the board members. Let's start with the facilities question.
Yes, facilities.
Yeah.
Who owns the building at 1054 Harvey Pond Road? And you owe the deed.
Ma'am?
And you owe the deed.
How the deed?
Right.
No, there are many ways to acquire real estate. I don't hold the deed on the property.
Well, you
but
don't own it if you don't hold the deed.
Well, that's a matter of opinion, ma'am.
No, ma'am. No, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Well,
I know real estate.
Well, the owner of the property wanted to sell the property, and he had to get my approval. He can't sell the property. We're under a contractual agreement that lasts for over 10 years.
So the deed is in your name?
It's in my name.
Light.
No. The deed is not in my name. I have a contractual agreement. It's a land contract. That's also a legal entity under any real estate acquisition.
Well, who is Lansing at Hartford LLC?
They are the original owners of the property, and they're holding the
That's
title.
the only deed that I see.
Yes, ma'am. That's right.
Of ownership for that particular property.
Sure. Yes, ma'am. Do you want to see my land contract or the agreement that I have with them? Because I have that too. I can submit that.
That would be a good idea.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
It would be a good idea.
Can I go back briefly to what we were just talking about, or should I not?
Give a lease to the
On facilities or
no,
on?
never mind. Go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to, staffing. I'm looking at your enrollment in your first year staff. You have about 16 and a half, or you have 16 and a half staff identified. I'm curious, given the population of students that you're serving.
Mr. Friend, remember, I can't hear that well. I'm sorry.
Given the population of students you plan to serve, why are there no student support positions? There's no psychologist, no guidance counselor, no social worker. Seems like that might be an area that you would probably want to have some staff for.
Yeah, so what we have, well, thanks for that question, firstly. And let me just talk about the staffing side just a little bit, and then I'll go into to the answer for the latter part of your question. The staffing is not going to be an issue for us. We've worked very hard with some of the local retired teachers. We've worked very hard with some younger teachers that are coming in from the universities, and we feel very confident that we won't have a problem staffing. In addition to that, we feel like the salary research that we've done is right on line or in line with some of the average salaries currently in the area. And also what we found out surprisingly is that many people, because they see the need for educational reform, are not necessarily concerned about how much money they're making. They're more concerned about how to impact this process, because they also understand that there's a dire need in the United States of America to change the education. Now, what we have agreed with the management company is that as these things are needed, as we're moving along, the management company would be responsible for assisting us in bringing in the additional resources, because with this at-risk management agreement, it is their responsibility ultimately to do the budgetary matters associated with that. So as we move forward, the management company will be responsible for bringing those resources in as we need them. It's also important that we note we have other resources that are in other schools and surrounding areas that we're connected with that will be able to also assist us as it relates to that question.
So it's, I guess, it looks like on
the services that you just asked, we will be using contracted services, so the people may not be fully involved.
We couldn't hear you. Could you please repeat that?
Yes, so addressing, he was asking about some of the final. He was asking about some of the services that didn't have positions, and I was responding that we will contract those services.
And I believe we set aside $25K for those EC-related services, right? I think that's set aside.
EC related.
That's just EC. I'm talking about, so specifically a guidance counselor.
Okay.
Is not in the budget. I don't see where it's a budgeted staff position. I don't see where it's a budgeted contract position. That's just one example.
Sure.
So I'm just curious as to why you wouldn't have that on staff, particularly for the students that you're seeking to serve.
Okay, and so regarding that, again, because we rely heavily on the management company to advise us in that particular area with their 20 years of experience, we have agreed that as those resources are needed, we'll bring them forward. That's what we agreed on.
Yeah, I understand that, but you have to pay for it.
Sure. Any additional services with the at-risk contract, the management company has agreed that they will be responsible for that.
At no cost to the school.
At no cost to us. That was agreed upon with the at-risk contract with the management company that we're working with, which is another reason why we wanted to go the management company route with the at-risk contract. Mr. McQueen, can you confirm that?
Yes. I'd like to ask a question about, you were scheduled to open this past fall, so you had already had students enrolled.
That's correct.
And so what have you done to maintain those relationships? Where are you in terms of where you think enrollment's going to be come August?
So great question. I'm glad you asked it. You know, I've been back. I'm from Paquimmis County. I think everybody knows that. I've been in Paquimmis County back since 2004. I am so entrenched in Paquimmis County. I am so locked in to Paquimmis County and the well-being of it, because I realize that how Paquimmis County impacts the state, nation, so forth and so on. So here's what's happening. I'm very involved politically in the area, although I'm not a politician. And many of the people that signed on with us in the very beginning are still very interested in supporting the school, not because they like me. It's simply because they are tired of continuously sending their children to schools that are failing. Let me clean it up a little bit. As stated by Ms. Catherine Pruitt, the superintendent for the state, not me, when we did the Zoom meeting with her, this is what she said. She said that African Americans have been graduating from Paquimmis County at 30% grade proficiency for over 30 years. Should not be allowed. In Elizabeth City, P.W. Moore, Pasquotank Elementary, 2019, 2 Fs. D's normally is what they are, but 2 Fs in 2019. So the parents in the area are really frustrated because the board has not presented them with another option. Students that are at disadvantage because of the educational system should be allowed a choice. And in Pasquotank, in Chowan, in Paquimmis, we fail the children by not giving them a choice. You don't have to like Torchlight Academy. You don't have to like them. You don't even have to like the board. But let's just simply agree that something different has to be done. So students, parents are calling us on a regular basis. We had 150 students ready. And when the carpet got yanked, we didn't get a lot of "I hate y'all" or people throwing eggs at the building or people mad at us. You know what they said? We understand and we support you. This is the last point. So as we continue to move forward with our summer programs, where we continue to teach math, science, history, and reading, we'll continue to recruit. The 150 students that we got, the majority of those recruits came by us knocking on doors, because we have relationships with people in the community because we're so active over the years. I hope that answers your question.
We are running up against the clock here. Any other questions that we want to ask the board? Okay, hearing none. Let me go back to my timesheet here. I apologize. I think we are at the closing statements, excuse me. Yes, so Mr. Riddick, you have 10 minutes for a closing statement.
Okay. What I'd like to do is invite the board to start their closing statements, and I will go last. And I'd like to start with Dr. Cronin, your closing statement, then we'll do Dr. Hortense Dodo, Dr. Swenson, and then Rima and myself. I'm sorry, Rima, Dr. Swenson, and myself.
Okay, thank you. My closing statement is that simply it has been about 2 years that we have been trying to open this school, and I think that for what has been presented, we have everything almost ready to start. So I hope that this time it will be to start running. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you again for this process. I would like to say that I'm Dr. Dodo, and I am the treasurer, not the secretary. So there must have been a mistake there. A question was pending about that. But in terms of closing, let's all remember that the purpose of all of this is to try to educate our children, our common human citizen in Perkins County here in North Carolina. It should be what we should all remember. The purpose of all of this is to give a chance to children to get an education. And we think that we can help in this process. Thank you.
Hi, this is Rima Owens. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I would just like to say that, in echoing what the previous board members have said, I mean, our purpose here is, and which is as well as our mission statement, which everyone has said without saying it in full, but it's to unleash each student's full natural potential in a high expectations environment where students regularly exceed expectations and compete globally as conscientious learned scholars. That's all of our mission, for being here. This is we're doing a public service as far as board members. However, we have a love and a desire to make sure that these students excel and succeed and are college and career ready. And right now, there's such a great disparity in that achievement gap being at 32.5% between white and black students. What we're here for is to close that gap, to close that disparity, to give these children an opportunity of choice for where they learn, to give them a better environment to learn in. And so, with that, we would ask that be taken into consideration. We feel we have the best management company for the job here, as they have taken a complete at-risk position. And, and that speaks volumes to the management company, because they're basically putting themselves in a position of a performance-based model, which is very, very challenging in any industry segment, especially dealing with children and children that have economic disadvantages, as a lot of these children do and will have. So that is just what I would ask to be considered in this accelerated application process. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. I just would like to reiterate that the board, as well as the management company, is dedicated to making sure that the students get everything that they need. And going back to what we were saying earlier about in the application there not being a guidance counselor, et cetera, one of my roles with Torchlight Academies is that I am the compliance director. So we will certainly apply for those Title I funds and all of the other federal funds to make sure that we have those positions for the students, and also, as Mr. McQueen said, he is dedicated to filling in the gap for any of the funds that may not be needed. We ask that you do forward this application to the next round, and we look forward to hearing that at the conclusion of our summary. Mr. Riddick?
Yes. I believe we have a chance to make a real difference in the state of North Carolina as it relates to education for our children. I honestly believe that every member here on this advisory board feels the same way. I also believe that the Lane Riddick Charter School is so positioned for this time. Because of the things that we've done in the past and the things that we continue to do, make us the right fit for what Pacoimitas County needs. We understand the terrain, we understand the children, we understand how the systems work. We even understand it so much that we understood that when we went before the zoning committee, that we would be met with hostility and great resistance. And the reason why we're met with hostility and great resistance is because many people in our area don't want to see change coming. But the reality is this, family, as a state operating in this global society, we have to change. And one of the areas that we have to change is in education. When we went before the board, I think it's important that we explain this, because last meeting, 2 meetings ago, I think someone kind of minimized the issues that we were dealing with on a local level. All right? So decisions that normally take 4 minutes to make in zoning meetings took 90 minutes. The chair was asking us the kind of questions y'all are asking us. And really all he needed to be concerned about was whether or not it was properly zoned. He didn't deal with any of those questions until the last 2 minutes. But for 90 minutes, we were subjected to that. Another point, for about 5 weeks, our application laid at the desk of the inspections department for about 5 weeks. So these unseen things that you may not be familiar with are things that we deal with. And on top of that, you yank the carpet from us. I'm sorry, advisory board. And what happens as a result of that? Now, if Catherine Truitt has already stated, based on her data, that for over 30 years, we've been basically graduating people functionally illiterate. 70% of the people graduating for over 30 years in this one demographic. And then we know that we can make a difference. And you yank the carpet from us 2 weeks before our time was up. How do you think that made us feel as a board? This is personal now. We were hurt because we know that we can make a difference with our children. We were further hurt because we're looking at these data. They're traumatic. When we look at this data, it's traumatic to watch these children graduating and understanding that the only thing they have to look forward to, according to the new Jim Crow, Michelle Alexander, is going to jail. Look at me. I look like most of these kids. Look at me. I look the same. I don't want to grow up, or my children, or my friends, or my family members, growing up in a society where I'm discounted. I don't want that anymore. I'm tired of that. So I'm here fighting for people like me. And if you want to say that we're being racially specific, then that's fine. We have to look at the problem for where it is. And if the problem is that, like Dr. Catherine Truitt stated, for 30 years, 30% grade proficiency amongst African Americans, why should we tolerate that? Who am I as a man growing up in Pacoimitas County, where my family has been there for nearly 200 years? My uncle, my great-great-grandfather fought in the Civil War. All the wars my family fought in. What kind of man would I be to stand by and allow that to happen, especially when we have the resources? So yes, we went after Torchlight Academy. I remember we were at Shaw University. My mother was speaking at Shaw University. I was introduced to Don McQueen. I looked at what he was doing. We looked at his pattern. We looked at his history. And see, although the management company has been around for 20 years, I have a relationship with Mr. McQueen that goes back over 30 years. When I was in Buffalo, New York, which is where he's from, we have common friendship there. I know his track record. I know what he's capable of doing. I know what his passions are. And everybody on our board are equally feeling the same way as it relates to Mr. McQueen. Has mistakes been made in the past, Mr. Machado? Of course they've been made. Which one of you here haven't made mistakes? And then the other question is that, look at how the charter schools operate. After 2 years, if they're not performing, generally the state shuts them down. Generally, that's what happened. You got a school that's been, I'm going to use the language, miseducating our children. I don't care about the impact statement. Miseducating our children for over 30 years. Why are they allowed to operate? See, these kind of discrepancies are what we have to look at. And perhaps they're allowed to operate because they don't know, right? But we bring a solution to the table. So in closing, what I'm saying is real simple. Allow us the opportunity. Our application has been before you before. You've approved it. There's nothing changed in the application, hardly anything. Allow us the opportunity to make a difference with America. I'll close in this. Condoleezza Rice, 2014, commissioned to head up the International Affairs Study. She said the biggest threat to America, and I say this a lot, the biggest threat to America moving forward is education. Meaning that between India and China, they graduate 970,000 engineers every year. We graduate 70,000. 45% of those are not American born. What does that say about us? That in a few years, we can forget it if we don't do something different. My passion goes beyond Paquemmons County. My passion is what's good and what's right for this nation. And how you rule will decide on how you feel. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much. So we have 10 minutes of deliberation amongst ourselves. And who would like to start?
I feel compelled to respond to this. We yanked the rug out. At the time that we made the decision that we were gonna take that charter, they were 2 months, not even a month, I guess, from opening, and they didn't have a building, and they didn't present us with an alternative. Today is October. They still don't have that building. Now they'll have it in time for next fall. But they did. If this is October, and the building still is not ready, so we were not misjudging when we made the decision that they would not have that building ready by 1 July, which it was not. So we yanked the rug out from under you thing. I don't think that's valid, and I feel like that has to be addressed.
Other comments related to the application?
I'd still like to know more about the lease, because on page 1, it refers to if they are approved by the North Carolina State Board of Education, then they will operate as a Delaware public charter school. And I want to know if they are incorporated in Delaware and in North Carolina, or just what? That needs clarifying to me.
Okay.
As well as ownership.
And
whether the EMO will be subletting to Elaine Riddick if he has an agreement to lease from the owner. So I need that clarified.
Other questions, thoughts, comments?
I got lost with the whole Three Rivers connection. What is?
Okay, so all right. So Three Rivers was called something else. I forgot the name of it. Was an existing school whose charter we took. Global Education, that group assumed the charter. It was the first time we'd ever done an assumption, and they took over that charter and to run that school. At the time that we approved it, that organization had 3, I think, primaries. At some point later, in a meeting that we had relative to that whole situation, Mr. McQueen informed us that the other 2 primaries were no longer associated with the business, and that he was the only primary left.
For global.
He was the only primary left in global. The school, Three Rivers, there were a lot of issues with the assumption. Absolutely, a ton of issues with the assumption. A ton of issues with the previous people, just taking the stuff, hiding the buses, all kinds of problems with the building, all kinds of issues. They had to move to another location where they were for a while. They have now moved back, I guess, to the original location. But the performance of that school at the end of that first year was an F. So my issue with what was said in the response was that it said, well, Torchlight doesn't run Three Rivers, Global runs Three Rivers. That's true, that's a statement of fact, but the same people are Torchlight and Global. Even though they are different, they may be different companies, but the principal in both is the same person. And then Essie Mae Fox was a charter school that applied for an application in Rowan County, if I remember. They partnered with Torchlight, or maybe Global, I don't remember which one it was, but they partnered with Don McQueen and Company to run that school. The school opened at the end of the school was an F at the end of the first year, but at the end of the first year, the school requested to disassociate from the management company, which they did. And then there were all kinds of financial issues. Everybody saying it was the other person's fault. We don't really know what happened. But 2 years later, they had to close.
And then what was the other school? The Raleigh school?
Torchlight, which, okay, so Torchlight evidently did change names, Mr. McQueen?
The name changed when we took over in 2002. It was Northeast Raleigh Charter Academy. It no longer was in Northeast Raleigh. We couldn't leave it that, so we asked
That's
for
when
the
it became
name change
Torchlight.
to deviate to Torchlight Academy.
Okay,
That's
so
how that happened.
what I was saying about that was that Mr. McQueen said, well, in 2015, Torchlight LLC took over the school, and all of that preceded but in reality, the McQueens were running Torchlight prior to the LLC being in existence. So from my point of view, this is some other people, but that's my personal opinion on it.
What school was that?
That's Torchlight. That's their primary school that they've had for about 20 years.
And before that, they were what?
That was the first one.
But that school was called Northeast Raleigh Academy.
Yeah, but
previously.
But yeah. Did you own it? Did you run it as Northeast Raleigh Academy?
Never.
Okay, when you took it over, it became Torchlight.
Immediately, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Turner, can I be heard for 10 seconds? Just 10 seconds.
Sure.
Thank you very much. We do have a lease for the building. I just wanted to point that out. And our date for July 1 with the letter that we received from Clarie Porter was moved back to July 16th. And the last point that I'd like to make, in the past, 2 schools have opened without having certificate of occupancies. I'd just like to make that. Thank you.
I don't know how to respond to that. I don't know how a school opens without a certificate of occupancy.
They definitely don't get any money. We don't give you any money until you get a certificate of
There may have
occupancy.
been schools that have been approved through this process that didn't quite have the facilities lined up, but as an accelerated applicant, the facility has to be locked up. That's not us making that rule. That's a requirement that without the facility, you don't get to go to the accelerated path. Just a clarification there. Am I correct, Mr. Machado, on that?
That is correct. I'm not aware of any school that opened without a certificate of occupancy. Maybe they were in a temporary facility until their permanent site was finished. I
just opened a new school.
I could talk to them
last
offline
month,
and try to
I
get
would have
some.
loved to have done it without a CO.
Yeah, tell me about it. I'd like to still
To
do
clarify,
it
she
one
sent me
years
email.
ago, and it definitely has.
Excuse me?
Ms. Porter, to clarify, she sent me the email. Okay, so, thank you.
So we're continuing. I want to focus the conversation maybe less on Torchlight and more on this application specifically, if I may. To that end, I will say that, and let me start by saying that I certainly hear loud and clear and appreciate the board's passion for bringing change to this community that they want to serve. And I'll speak for myself, but I suspect I speak for others on this board that nobody here would look at the performance of those students and those in that area of our state, specifically the subgroup of students that you want to serve, and think that that's acceptable, because it is not, and it's an embarrassment for our state, and certainly for that region of the country. So I hear you loud and clear, and I absolutely appreciate that we need board members like this board who want to go into these communities and bring about change, because without you, no one will. No one has for 30 years, if not longer. I do want to respond to a comment that you made about we don't have to like you, or we don't have to like Torchlight. This isn't about liking. This is about we as a body have the responsibility to make sure that we have the trust and the confidence in your board that if you are given this opportunity to run this school, that you can do so successfully. So it's about trust and confidence. And part of that trust and confidence, yes, is the decisions you make as to who you partner with, who you hire, what curriculum you use. But I do feel that I want to say that it's not about like. It's about the responsibility of having the confidence and the trust that this board can get this job done. Because this is a big lift, as you know, for sure. I do have some questions about the budget. I'm not quite sure I understand yet the role on how the email is getting paid, because it's a break-even budget. When I look at your revenues and expenses and I drill into the budget, there's no line item there for the EMO. And so I'm pretty sure they're not doing this for free. So I do have some questions about that. I do have some questions about the staffing, as I brought up one example. I'm interested in learning a little bit more about the educational model, specifically around blended learning. It was kind of just a one paragraph that kind of felt like it was added but didn't really sync up with the other elements of the educational plan. So those are things that I'm interested in getting more information about. I will say that I'm probably inclined to we have basically as a decision here this morning three options before us. One is to just deny and recommend that does not move forward. We could approve the accelerated path today, or the third option is to bring the board back for a second interview, still on the accelerated pace rate. I'm impressed with the board. I want to learn more about some of these other things. I'm inclined to do a second interview, but that's my opinion. So.
I agree. There's questions about one of the board members having an organization that's going to be contracting with the school. A follow-up answer to that would be great. And I just want to mention too that there are a number of us that are new to the board, and we didn't have any role in the past decisions. So we're looking at this with fresh eyes. And even those that were on the board are also looking at this with fresh eyes. So there's nothing in the past that is necessarily influencing us to make this decision that we're going to make today. So I just want to assure you of that.
Thank you.
If I might, this is Rima Owens. I'd like to answer the budgeting question.
This is really, we're going to respectfully, we're not looking for answers right here and now. I think that we would look for those answers if we went for a second interview.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to move that we bring Elaine Riddick back for a second interview next month.
I'll second that. Any discussions? So the motion is to bring Elaine Riddick back for a second interview in November. Any discussion from CSAP members?
Will we provide them a list of questions?
Yeah, so the way this would work, as it did with the two others that we're going to hear from later today, is we as a board will develop the questions that we want them to respond to. They would respond to those questions in writing. The second interview would presumably be mostly focused on those questions, though obviously the responses to those questions might spark other questions. But we would have in short order what we did last month. It was within a week. I would ask all CSAB members to send me a list of questions that you have for the board. We'd get those turned around to them. They would write the responses back to us before the next meeting. I'd also just since I second the motion, and I do support the second interview, I would say if possible, it'd be really helpful for your full board to be here in person.
We'll make that happen.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, the motion is to bring Elaine Riddick back for a second interview in November. We will send them the questions that we want them to answer. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any nays? Okay, it passes unanimously. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can I just say this now that we're close? Oh, we're not close.
Sure, go ahead.
No, I just want to say.
Well, we're done with the matter of Elaine Riddick, but go
Listen,
ahead.
I'm gonna be traveling out of the country, early November. This is October?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, the first week or second week in November, I'll be out of the country. So I'm hoping that it can be after that, if possible.
The dates of our meetings are already set. What are the meeting dates for November?
The 9th and 10th of November?
8th
I'll
and
be
9th.
back.
8th and 9th.
8th and 9th, I'll make it a point to be back, but the early part I'll be gone. But thank you very much. And thanks again for voting to have us to come back for a second meeting. Thank you.
Let's take 5 minutes, and just grab some water, and then we have coming up.
It's lunch, actually.
Oh, it's lunch?
Yep.
All right, let's do 5 minutes. Look at that.